Okay.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us. For those still online, as we continue to deal with COVID, and certainly encourage everyone to get out and get vaccinated when your time is up, and play it as safe as possible. Uh, Again, listen to our chief medical officer. So, I just want to say up front before we get going too much, I'm not going to be here for very long. Shortly after new business, or at the beginning of new business, I have a couple of small announcements to discuss, and then I'm going to move on and leave it to the capable hands of Deputy Mayor Murphy to follow through the rest of the agenda. Deputy Mayor. So we'll start off. Adoption of the agendas and minutes. First of all, adoption of the meeting agenda for April 2021. Deputy Mayor Murphy, Councillor Bent. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Adoption of the meeting minutes of April 6, 2021. Moved by Councillor Bercy, second Councillor Butler. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contraminded? Motion is carried. Business arising from previous minutes? There being none. Next is visitors, presentations, and petitions. So I have two proclamations here this evening. I'm going to try to now get to. Let's see. The first one is child. Sorry about the delay there. The first one is regarding Child Abuse Prevention Month. Miles for Smiles Foundation. Whereas children are the foundation for a prosperous and innovative society, and the foundation of a child's growth and development is established when the community takes responsibility for creating healthy environments where our children can thrive. Whereas all children deserve to have a safe, stable, nurturing home and community to foster their healthy growth and development. Whereas child abuse and neglect is an important societal concern that may affect the long-term health and well-being of not only children, but also the adults they become. Whereas child abuse and neglect impacts our entire society and our society's future. Whereas child abuse prevention is a shared responsibility and finding solutions requires the involvement and collaboration of citizens, organizations, and government entities. Whereas this month we emphasize the importance of understanding the devastating problem of child abuse and neglect and commit to learn more about the behavioral and physical signs of possible abuse. Therefore, I, Mayor Terry French, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2021 to be Child Abuse Prevention Month in the town of Conception Bay South and urge all citizens to work together to help reduce child abuse and neglect significantly in the years to come. Dated this day, the 20th day of April 2021, Terry French. Certainly a significant one, and it's unfortunate that we have to do those types of things, but we do. Next, we have Volunteer Week proclamation. Whereas 12.7 million Canadian volunteers give their time to help others, contributing close to 2 billion volunteer hours per year. And whereas volunteers in Conception Bay South mentor our children, feed our hungry, comfort our lonely, beautify our green spaces, and fundraise for our charitable organizations. And whereas volunteers in Conception Bay South have stepped up during COVID-19 pandemic to support families, friends, neighbors, and strangers, people standing up to systemic racism, and people sharing insights to how to create a more just and equitable society. And whereas Conception Bay South's volunteers are young, old, families, workers, retirees, men, women of all ages and backgrounds. And whereas the collective result of the work done by our town's volunteers is that Conception Bay South is a more desirable place to live. And whereas the town of Conception Bay South acknowledges the theme, the value of one, the power of many, for Volunteer Week 2021, and recognize the many people who contribute to our community by volunteering. And whereas organizations in Conception Bay South that rely on volunteers include many fundamental organizations. And now, therefore, I, Terry French, Mayor of Conception Bay South, do hereby proclaim April the 18th to the 24th, 2021 as National Volunteer Week and urge my fellow citizens to recognize the critical role played by volunteers in our community. Terry French, Mayor. And if I could just add to that, hopefully soon we may get back to having, like we always had, a celebration in our community, in our town. And all the volunteers, or many volunteers, were invited to come out for just a small thank you. We used to host it. It was, some pick foods, and usually we'd have a guest speaker. And hopefully we'll get back to that days in the coming months. Maybe this time next year, if we all get vaccinated, we'll have a one-on-one again. Okay, back to our regular agenda. Visitors presentation. No, we got that one. New business. So like I said, I'm going to start off here now, Deputy Mayor Murphy, if you're good with that. I'll start off and then I'll turn it over to you. So first off,
Okay.
unfortunately, I have a couple of people to recognize who are deceased. Mr. Norb Murphy. Norb Murphy, his son, Fire Captain Chad Murphy, works in our fire department. And I certainly want to send out my best to Chad and Paul, of course. That would be a good friend of mine, and Lisa as well, his kids. Norb was a real nice man. Lived his lifetime in Kelligrews. Didn't cause no trouble for nobody. But we certainly, he always had a nice word with him every time I ran into him, and I certainly want to send my best to one of our town employees, indeed his whole family. I also want to mention Mr. Eric Taylor. Many of us know Mr. Eric Taylor, including our deputy mayor here, who's married to his daughter. I certainly want to send out my condolences to his whole family. Mr. Taylor was a man who worked in our town his lifetime. I guess I can't tell you as many years, but I know he's always seemed like he was in business in my lifetime. Did lots of work for all of us in CBS at some time when it was digging out basements, fixing lawns, hauling around topsoil for us, stone, you name it, he did it. And I can assure you that, there's a lot of stories can be told. And I recently read one actually about him helping a young fella who was starting out in life and needed some help along the way to get a basement and so on. So to his family, I certainly want to send our condolences. And besides that, I mean, Eric Taylor was a man who volunteered countless amount of hours in our time. Ironically enough, we just read about volunteer and recognizing volunteers. But I can only imagine the number of scoops of ice cream he's given me over the years at the church functions. So, and that was just one of his roles, of course, was catering at the church. So, again, all the best to Mr. Eric Taylor's family, and certainly our thoughts and prayers are with you. Next thing I want to get on is it's the time of year again, I guess. And over the last couple of weeks, it's been highlighted to me by numerous residents who've called me about the speed on our roads again and some of the things that are happening with traffic. And I'm not asking anymore, I'm begging people to kindly slow down on our by roads. It is literally impossible for all kinds of reasons for us to put speed bumps on everybody's road. That's a reality. And I'd be fooling you if I told you any different. But then there's other cases where there are speed bumps and that only slows you down, some people down for a short minute, and then they speed right up again. So, I'm imploring and begging people to please slow down on our roads. The evenings are getting longer. I even noticed it last night after the fog burnt off a little bit. Excuse me. So please slow down. We got kids out. We got a lot of people out walking, and just take your time. And I mean, I know I'm as guilty as everybody. You're in a rush to get home, and you're rushing to this and rushing to that. But somebody's life is certainly more important. So please take your time on our side roads. And for those that are I've heard from, please fill out the appropriate form online for traffic calming, and it'll be assessed as best we can and deal with some of the problems. But again, like I said, we cannot put a speed bump on every single road in our town, unfortunately, and in some cases it wouldn't even work. To be very frank with you, and we've had I can't tell you the countless discussions we've had over the last 3.5 years about the speed on our roads and ways and trying to deal with it, including increasing our budgets for traffic calming and so on. So please slow down to everybody. And one last thing before I go, now that the snow is all gone, and there's been a bit of wind around of late, please pick up your garbage outside. Everybody takes the time to clean up their own little neighborhood, and it's common this time of year after the snow melt and so on. There's always a little bit of extra garbage that you didn't see for the last 6 or 8 months, or blew out of your car and you never thought it because it was buried in snow. So please, everybody, clean up their own area, their own piece of the town. We'll do something later on to do a massive town cleanup. But I think if we all take a little bit of our own initiatives around our own properties, and certainly get rid of a lot of the garbage that we now see because of the snow melt and so on. So that's it for me. Thanks very much. And Deputy Mayor Murphy, I'll turn it over to you, sir. Good night, guys.
Good night.
Okay,
Mayor.
Your Worship, thank you very much and have a good evening. So I guess we'll continue with the new business portion of our meeting. Councillor Uden.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. First of all, my condolences to yourself and your extended family on the passing of your father-in-law, as well as the Murphy family, as the Mayor mentioned. A couple of things this evening. First and foremost, Volunteer Week. Conception Bay South was built by volunteers, and as a councillor, we often see, and have various interactions with a lot of our volunteers. And, from food banks to hockey arenas to soccer fields to, our libraries and so forth. Like we're incredibly lucky to have the commitment of volunteers throughout the community, and hopefully we can thank them in a very public way sometime in the near future. Two issues. One is that some years ago, I know there was considerable road work done to upgrade pavement on Manuel's Bridge, which was deteriorating incredibly. And throughout Route 60, which unites the whole community, there's several areas that were repatched or repaved through Calgaroos and so forth. I had a call from a resident, and the section of I guess our highway from Forest Road in Calgaroos to Mitts Furniture in Upper Gullies. I gotta say, it's incredibly deplorable condition. It's there's safety risk. There's what I call inverse speed bumps. To comment on the speed factor, you don't have to worry about speeding in Upper Gullies because it's a danger for most to drive that patch. And what I'm going to ask is if we can issue a letter to the province and specifically Transportation Works for the road improvement plan, that be at least given some consideration for the upcoming season, and probably CC or MHA Ellen Hottenheimer. The last thing I'll mention is I did have a couple inquiries on water and sewer and our future water and sewer works in the town, specifically in the Casey's Road area. And I know we have, as a town council, have applied for infrastructure funding and so forth, and have yet to hear. But it'd be nice to, get an update or provide an update sometime in the future as to just how much we've applied for and what potentially that could do for those streets and I guess in the next 7 or 8 spots on the water and sewer priority list. And I'll leave it there. Your Deputy Mayor. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Uden. Councillor Tilley.
Thank you, Your Worship. I too like to pass on my condolences to both the Murphy and the Taylor families as well on the passing of their fathers. I had the opportunity to know both men, and I'm sure they'll be sadly missed by their families. I'd like to let the residents know as well that our bulk waste program will commence in May. I'm not sure of the dates, but for anyone who would like to avail of our town website, just go on in there, and I believe there's 7 or 8 different dates. They start in May and they run, I believe, in July and again in October. So bulk waste drop-off program, and we'll continue again for this year. Thank you.
Go around my screen now because I always get fooled up in the seniority issue here. So I'm going to stick my neck out, ask Councillor Hillier to speak next.
Yes, Your Worship. My intent was to speak to volunteers and to the condolences, and obviously my colleagues have done a great job in passing on the thoughts on both of those issues, and I'll leave it at that for this evening.
Thank you very much, sir. Councillor Christine Butler.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. I too extend my condolences, as does everybody else, to you and Ruby and to your families and the Murphy family. And also, again, as Rick Hillier just said, we've already all said a lot about volunteers, but I just want to say, I appreciate you, the town appreciates you, staff, councillors, and there are so many of you here. It's the backbone of our town is volunteers, and I know I'm involved in a lot of volunteer organizations, and so is everybody else around the table, and we all know who else is involved, and we don't always know who else is involved. When we look at those little pantries that are around town, people putting groceries in there and for the people that need it. You know, there's so many little things that happen. And I just want to say thank you to all of you, and you appreciate it. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. Councillor Junior Bercy.
Your Worship, it is I too like the condolences to the Taylor and Murphy family as well for the passing of their loved ones. Your Worship, I got a couple of issues to put forward this evening. Our residential survey for the recreation and cultural master plan is currently available on our town website. We encourage all residents to take the time to complete the survey. The deadline for completion of the survey is April 24th, 21. And the second thing, Your Worship, is the planning is currently underway for this year's 3-hour challenge in the event. The event will take place in June, and details will be announced through the town's social media platforms in early May. That's it, Your Worship, for this evening. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Next, we'll go to Councillor Darren Bent.
Thank you, Deputy Murphy, and again, condolences to you and Ruby and her family, and of course to Chad Murphy and his family. And the only thing I can say about volunteers is volunteers built this town, and they continue to build the town, and I thank them for their great efforts. I work with a lot of volunteers, and fantastic to see people come out in the spirit of the community to lend a helping hand to ensure that this community is the community that we all want to call home, and I'm very proud of. Just want to touch on a little item that Councillor Uden brought up. Actually, it's not a little item. It's not a little item here in this end of town in Ward 1. It's the state of the road in Conception Bay South called Topsail Road. And from just east of the Manuals Bridge right up to the Paradise Line, it's in terrible shape. And it's especially in terrible shape when you get around the area of Topsail Elementary and heading east from there right up to Topsail Beach. And having signs out that say bump doesn't always help. I just want to say that if we are sending a letter and looking for consideration for road work anywhere in the town, I would like to have that stretch of road added to it as well. I've met with the MHAs in the area. I've taken them down there, I've walked it with them, and I've shown them. And that's been a couple of years now. And I think it's time that some consideration be given to this area as well as the area that Councillor Uden mentioned, both in desperate need of repairs, Deputy. Just another item I want to talk about, and this is something I want to address, an issue that's been a concern of many of our residents here in Conception Bay South and people in other areas as well over the past few weeks. Recently, there's been blasting operations going on here in CBS at the CBS Industrial Park, up at the top of Fowler's Road and in areas outside of CBS. But it's been clearly heard and felt here in our community and by our residents. And I've spoken with a number of those residents who have expressed great concern about the blast. We have residents just a few hundred meters away from the site where the blasting took place up at the industrial park, live in the Henry's Place, Delta Place area. One lady I spoke to, a senior deputy, was knocked to the ground in fear in her own garden after one blast. It took place Wednesday, April 7th. She said the ground shook And you can imagine speaking to a senior frightened beyond belief in her own garden. Spoke to her husband a little bit later, who said that, well, to say the least, he was angry about what had happened. And why? Well, he was angry because there was no notice. They were taken completely off guard. He said he nearly fell from his chair inside the home when it happened. And this blast also came as a surprise to residents at the top of Fowler's Road, not very far away from this area. Now, looking into the matter, with town staff and others, the companies involved here all seem to have the proper paperwork. They did nothing wrong with regards to the operations and gave the required notice in the area. They fired a blast that was within the regulated load. And as we all know, blasting is necessary. But Deputy, therein lies a bit of a problem. If someone in their home or in their garden can be rocked by these blasts without notice, and to the degree residents have reported here in CBS, it seems to me and others that there's something wrong with the regulations. One resident told me that he has a neighbor in his 80s who was a young boy in England during World War II, traumatized by the air raids, and was once again traumatized by this blast, bringing back the fears from his childhood. One resident raised a concern with all the quarries that have been applied for within St. John's along the border. When they get operational, they fear the blasting is going to get more common and will go on for decades to come. Councillor Hillier brought that issue up a few weeks ago, raised concerns about the quarries. Deputy, a week ago Monday, another blast, and this one fell over a great deal of the Northeast Avalon. Here in Conception Bay South, from east to west, and other municipalities felt the same thing. It left some wondering even if there had been an earthquake with the loudness and the vibrations felt. But the blast actually happened a few kilometers east of CBS near the TCH. One of our residents took matters in their own hands and went to the province's occupational health and safety people and told them, that this was something that they were very deeply concerned about, and they were told that this is going to be looked into. But there's no indication that anything was done wrong. After this incident, even meteorologist Eddie Shear posted on social media a description of how sound travels under the atmospheric conditions that occurred that night. Almost a perfect storm scenario to amplify sound. He referred to it as, and I'm just reading this, temperature inversion atmospheric conditions. A blast that night under those conditions amplified and distributed the effects over a large area more than in a clearer, warmer conditions. So atmosphere has a role in this as well, Deputy. I understand another blast will take place at the top of Fowler's Road, likely in the next week, and probably next week. We don't expect any more up that area for, I guess, quite a while. One of the companies involved, after being approached by a senior who lives up in the area, has agreed to lower the charge of the blasting and give him notice of the next time one will occur. So hopefully that's something that we can pass along to residents. But to wrap this up, it seems to me it's time regulations got a good review and hopefully revised with expert, industry, and of course, public input. And there are three things that the residents feel that I've spoken to feel that should be reviewed. It's time that the area of notice is expanded so that nearby residents, if any, are notified. There are lots of modern ways to let people know what's going on around them, and they should be availed of. And it's time the maximum charge regulations get a look at as well. Do they need to be so high as to have the effect that we've heard about lately? And finally, the one thing that I think has been missed in all of this is the consideration of the atmospheric conditions at the time of a blast in the regulations. That, maybe there should be a meteorologist consulted before blasting happens to ensure minimum effect and not the impacts that we've heard about recently. So, Deputy, we all know that concerns regarding fireworks, how they affect dogs, animals, and dogs in particular, it's possibly worse in these scenarios. So I brought this into the chambers tonight, and we'll also bring to committee, but I'd like to see council support a review of the guidelines and the concerns raised by the residents to the proper authorities so that maybe some of this can be looked at and reviewed and updated. We've done a fair bit of work internally, I guess, from our staff view, but I think it's time to maybe send a letter off or maybe even meet with the officials that are in charge of this and oversee this so that we can ensure that the impacts are minimized. As we get closer to seeing more quarries near our borders and more blasting within CBS and just along CBS, I think it's time to have these blasting rules reviewed, Deputy. So I'm bringing that forward tonight, and I'll bring it to committee for proper discussion to see where we can go specifically from here. But it's something that a number of residents, I believe, would like to see, and it's a concern that seems to be growing, especially given what's happened over the past few weeks in the area. Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bent, and no question. Thank you very much for bringing that forward. It is a major, major concern over the past few weeks down in that area, and I agree that obviously the regulations have to be looked at, and I can assure residents that this council will do whatever it can to make sure things are done a bit differently and done more safely. So again, thank you very much, Councillor Bent. Councillor Davis.
Yes, Deputy. I just want to pass on some trailway counts and some friendly reminders. On a monthly basis, we report on the trailway usage, and I'm thrilled to advise that within the month of March, we have recorded 26,815 counts along our 5 counters on the trailway from Spruce Hill Road to Heritage Road. That brings our total since November 21st, 2020 to 98,089. And I can only imagine that's going to grow as the weather gets better. Some friendly reminders, please do not block access to our trailway by parking in front of the gates. Also, scoop when you're enjoying the trail with your 4-legged furry friends. Please do not litter. I've noticed some garbage on our trails. Practice social distancing and walk on the right-hand side. And that's it for me, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Davis. I've just got a couple of things here, one with respect to outstanding taxes, but before I get into that, number one, thank you very much on behalf of the Taylor family for your words of condolence. I'll just say one thing about Eric Taylor is, ever since I got elected to council, he vowed that he would never have a conversation or an argument with me over council business. And he used to refer to it, I won't have any confusion with you over that. So, and he didn't. He stood true to his word, but he used to call Councillor Tilley all the time and complain. So I was happy with that one. Okay, I had a call from a couple of residents with respect to ATV use on our town roads, town areas, and had a conversation with Inspector Brennan at the RNC. They are going to ramp up and get some extra patrols out. And I think there's a meeting scheduled. We're going to sit and have a chat with them, see what we can do collectively between our enforcement and his people as well. So with respect to outstanding tax accounts, this is very, very important, and I thought I'd bring this forward. The town is currently reviewing all outstanding tax accounts, and we are beginning the collection process. 2020 and 2021 have been difficult years for us. While we recognize that residents' incomes have been affected by the pandemic, the town has also realized a negative impact on its cash flow. The town needs these funds to continue to provide the high levels of service that residents expect. Residents are reminded that there is tax and interest relief available for qualifying individuals and seniors under its low income and seniors tax incentive policies. If you think you may qualify, please contact our finance staff to make an application. The town is currently owed over $4.4 million in taxes that have been outstanding for more than a year. This is not acceptable, and we will be undertaking the necessary steps necessary to collect all of these outstanding balances. This includes the disconnection of water services, collection agency services, legal action, and power of sale. And if you find yourself in a position where you have not contacted the town to discuss your account or set up a payment plan, now is the time to do so. The town is committed to working with all residents and businesses to collect taxes in a way that does not cause hardship. We will work with anybody to try and relieve the hardship. Statements with outstanding balances were sent out to applicable residents at the end of March, and collection letters will be sent out by the end of this week. Residents are reminded to keep their contact information up to date by contacting our finance department. I would like once again to remind residents that if they find themselves in arrears, please contact our finance department staff to make arrangements and set up a payment plan. So we'd really like to encourage our residents to get their tax accounts up to date. And again, we will do whatever we can to work with you to make sure that we can help you along the way. So that's it for me. So we'll move into the regular agenda by going to recommendations of the Planning and Development Committee, and the chair is Councillor Rex Hillier.
Yes, Your Worship, these are motions that are brought forward from our committee meeting of April 13th, 2021. Number 1, 32 Fogarty Avenue. Be it so resolved that application number COM-21-021 received on January 25th, 2021 for a personal service use as a home-based business at 32 Fogarty Avenue be approved in accordance with Council's discretionary authority at section 10.7 on condition that the off-street parking at the subject property is increased to accommodate a minimum of 4 vehicles to accommodate both the residential and home-based business uses required by section 6.7.1 A3 of the Town's Development Regulations. So moved.
Second.
It's been moved. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Bursey, any discussion?
Yes, Your Worship, as you're aware, we promote home-based business, and our regulations allow for home-based business, but one of the conditions is that there be no on-street parking as a result of that home-based business. So in this case, we're asking that off-street parking be provided as required.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Contrary-minded? Motion is carried.
Number 2, accessory building 9 Cassandra Place. Be it so resolved that application number ACC-21-041 submitted on March 30, 2021, seeking approval of a 1.5 meter by 3 meter accessory building at 9 Cassandra Place be approved on the condition that the shed must be located in accordance with section 5.3.1 of the Town's Development Regulations. So moved.
It's been moved. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Councillor Butler. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded, motion is carried.
Number 3, municipal planning area boundary change proposal. Recommendation. Whereas the Eastern Newfoundland Regional Appeal Board has ordered that the town of Conception Bay South does not have authority to regulate development within Long Pond Harbor, and by extension, beyond the marine shoreline within the community. And whereas in accordance with section 46 of the Urban and Rural Planning Act 2000, the town of Conception Bay South has appealed the decision of the Eastern Newfoundland Regional Appeal Board to the Supreme Court of Newfoundland and Labrador. And whereas the decision from the Supreme Court of Newfoundland and Labrador in that matter is not expected in the short term, and whereas for greater certainty and without prejudicing the town's application to the Supreme Court of Newfoundland and Labrador, the town wishes to clarify its authority to regulate development that would attach to the marine shoreline within the town. Therefore, be it so resolved that in accordance with section 10 and 25 of the Urban and Rural Planning Act 2000, the town initiate an amendment to the municipal plan and development regulations to implement municipal plan policies, future land use designation and zoning within and adjacent to Long Pond Harbor, and also request that the Minister of Municipal and Provincial Affairs amend the Conception Bay South Municipal Planning Area Order, CNLR 835/96, so that the town's authority to control and regulate development within and adjacent to Long Pond Harbor is afforded greater certainty. So move.
Second move. Councillor Tilley seconds. Any discussion?
Yes, Your Worship. As you're aware, back in early February, late January, the Eastern Newfoundland Appeals Board heard an appeal related to the OCI project. Basically, the appeal was on the town's ability to provide an approval in principle for that project. And at that time, the appeal board found that the town had limited authority to approve development applications for Long Pond Harbor. Basically, what they were saying is that the waters of Long Pond are not part of the town of Conception Bay South, and therefore we don't have jurisdiction for those waters. And as a result of not having jurisdiction, we did not have the right to provide that approval in principle. And within that report, they gave us the appeals board gave us the process whereby moving forward, we ensure that those waters are included in town of Conception Bay South, and that we have jurisdiction to manage development within those waters. And that's where we are this evening. So basically what we're doing here this evening, we're asking the province to amend legislation such that the waters of Long Pond, which we always thought were part of Conception Bay South, so that we can ensure that the waters of Long Pond are within the borders of the town of Conception Bay South, and therefore we can go ahead and issue permits and control development within that area.
Thank you very much. So I guess, Councillor Hillier, that also means that any development down there that is attached, I guess, to the shoreline that's contained within the harbour, we're looking for the permission now to control development in that area.
I'm not sure exactly your question, Your Worship, but yeah, we're asking that any development that involves increasing a footprint in the harbour or in Long Pond Harbour, that we would have some control over that development.
Okay, but that's what I meant to say. Thank you for clarifying that for me.
All right.
Any more discussion? Hearing none.
Just to sum up, Your Worship, if I know there's a map provided with this. Basically, the area that we've asked for an amendment to be added to the town of Conception Bay South represents the boundary of what is today Long Pond Harbour Authority. So part of that goes out into Conception Bay, takes in the two breakwaters and so on. So that's why the map is a little bit contorted. And I guess what's interesting with this whole thing is, Your Worship, we've talked about not having jurisdiction to provide development permits for that area, but not only do we not have jurisdiction or to provide permits, we also don't have jurisdiction to tell people to stop development if in fact they choose to do so. So at this point in time, we don't have the authority to basically go on Long Pond and tell someone they're not allowed to be infilling any part of the harbour, and nobody is showing us who has that jurisdiction. So at this point in time, we're asking that the province, through this motion, to make Long Pond part of the town of Conception Bay South, and that therefore moving forward, we will have jurisdiction to control that development.
Very good.
Just quickly, I think it's important to note that, it's without prejudice in the sense that we've been regulating and, on planning the Long Pond area and providing permits for decades. And we've always believed that we had the right to an authority for structures attached to our town boundaries. So this does not negate our appeal, and it just helps us respond to current requests for approvals. There's wharf structures that people have asked us to build, and we just don't have. There's a gap there in authority, and this will hopefully address that in the interim.
Yeah, you're correct. It certainly puts the town in a very precarious situation down there with respect to trying to regulate and have jurisdiction. So, any more discussion on this motion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded? Motion is carried.
Mr. Chair, I got to declare conflict of interest on the blanket recommendation. I believe there was one item with regards to it was a business proposal next to my sister-in-law's residence.
Okay.
So somebody put me in the penny box, please.
Ask the moderator to take you out of the meeting. Very good, he's gone. Go ahead, Councillor Hillier, with your recommendation.
Yes, Your Worship, the blanket recommendation from our meeting of April 13th. Be it so resolved that the decision and recommendations made at the Planning and Development Committee meeting on April 13th, 2021 be accepted as presented. So moved.
It's been moved. Do we have a seconder?
Yes.
Councillor Bercy. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion is carried. We can bring Councillor Tilly back in.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hillier. Very good. Okay, Councillor Tilly is back. So we'll go into the recommendations of the Recreation and Leisure Services Committee, and the chair is Councillor Junior Bursey. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, Your Worship. I have a motion this evening. The first one is the approval to tender a Lab 3 monument project. Recommendation. Be it so resolved that approval be given to call tender for the installation and completion of a Lab 3 monument project. Funds are available under the COVID-19 stimulus program funding on the 1910. Counts the province and the town on a cost share basis. So moved.
It's been moved. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Davis. Any discussion?
Yes, Your Worship, I have the discussion. Your Worship, the light armored vehicle, the LAV 3 monument program recognizes the service and the sacrifice of the Canadian Armed Forces in Afghanistan by providing a full-size demilitarized replica LAV 3. This monument will be the last LAV 3 to be dedicated in Canada, and the one of its kind in Newfoundland and Labrador. This monument will serve as a fitting tribute to the many veterans of the Afghanistan War from Conception Bay South, and the 158 Canadians who paid the ultimate sacrifice of Newfoundland and Labrador. So.
Very good. Thank you. Was there any more discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded? Motion is carried.
And the second one, Your Worship, is approval to tender a fully inclusive service agreement for the reservation systems for Conception Bay, South Arena, and the Robert French Memorial Stadium. So moved.
It's been moved. We have a seconder. Councillor Hillier. Any discussion?
Yes, Your Worship. I think it may have skipped over the second part of that, Your Worship, if I can go back. Be it so resolved that approval be given to call tender for the fully inclusive service agreement for the registration systems for Conception Bay South Arena and the Robert French Memorial Stadium. Funds are available in the department's operating budget. So moved. I missed the last sentence, Your Worship. Apologize.
No problem. No problem at all. So do we have a seconder for the revised motion?
Second.
Councillor Tilly. Any discussion?
Yes, Your Worship. This is the continuation of our building maintenance program, and this is one of the various contracts that we have in place to ensure the efficient operations of our buildings.
Any more discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded? Motion is carried.
And the third one, Your Worship, is the approval for a limited call for bids for roof upgrades at the Robert French Memorial Stadium. Be it so resolved that approval be given to prepare the limited call for bids for the roof upgrades for the Robert French Memorial Stadium. Funds are available in the Recreation and Community Development project account as noted. So moved.
It's been moved. Do we have a seconder, please? Councillor Butler. Any discussion?
Yes, your worship, discussion, your worship, these upgrades are the continuation of the retrofit job at the Robert French Memorial Stadium that took place last summer. As noted, monies are funded under the community development project, and the town has been granted. So moved.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded? Motion is carried.
And number 4, your worship, is the approval to tender playground equipment. As a recommendation, be it so resolved that approval be given to call tender for supply and delivery of playground equipment for future open space development and various upgrades throughout the town. Monies in trust for open space development will be used at a purchase. So moved.
It's been moved. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Davis. Any discussion, please? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded? Motion is carried.
And the last one, your worship, is just a blanket recommendation. Be it so resolved that the recommendations and decisions made at the Recreation and Leisure Service meeting held on April 13, 2021, to be accepted as presented. So moved.
It's been moved. Do we have a seconder, please? Councillor Davis. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded? The motion is carried. My apologies, Councillor Tilley. I overlooked the public works and engineering report, so I'll let you move into that again. My apologies.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. There's no problem. We just have the one blank recommendation from our committee meeting. But before I read that, I'm just going to touch up on some of the items that we did discuss at that meeting. We were getting some emergency repair work done on one of our tandem trucks. We have a crosswalk request from the area of 290 Concession Bay Highway, so that's under consideration. Our engineering public works department has quite a few projects that are ongoing. I just want to give an update on those. Our library project is progressing along quite well, and we hope to start that in the coming months. Anchorage Road paving program, the tender documents are ready for review, and staff will get back to us with some recommendations in the very near future. Design work is ongoing for Mills Road paving upgrading. Our wastewater treatment plant study, that work is ongoing. Our lift station upgrades drawings are currently under review by our senior staff, and we hope that the construction will start this in mid-May. Our district water meter upgrades, work will recommence, or work has recommenced in early April. The project started actually last November, but it will continue into the spring. Our 2021 street rehab program is currently under review, and we're just reviewing some streets which need some desperate repairs. 2021 traffic calming, our latest assessments are currently under review by our senior staff. Our sanitary sewer study, final draft submission is expected to council in the coming days, and of course that'll be presented to council hopefully in the next coming weeks. Our community park phase 2 work is currently still ongoing. Our 2020 street upgrading and paving program, we hope that some of the work that wasn't completed last year will commence in the coming weeks, and I believe there's a couple of areas had surface coats put on last year, so the second and final surface coat will go on those in hopefully early May. 2021 sidewalks, of course, they fall under our Anchorage Road paving program, and so the areas that will be getting sidewalks, they're clearly indicated in the town's website. Lawrence Pond Road upgrades, complete surface course will be done this year. Tills Road South stormwater upgrade phase 3, same there. The surface course still remains, so we'll get that work done as well. Some other projects that are still on the go, breakwater repairs. We hopefully going to get that finished sometime in May. And of course, our coastal assessment request for proposals was posted this week, So we hope to get some action on that soon. Laurel Worsley intersection improvements. We're just waiting on some feedback from Newfoundland Power. Garden Road stormwater review, that's currently ongoing by our engineering consultants, as well as the Mails River Route 60 crosswalk design. As I mentioned at the beginning, our bulk waste program is starting off in May. And so of course, it'll be at the same location this year, which is 43 Gateway Drive, storage yard, Killigrews, which is just down past the Kent Building Supplies. We also touched on a fire hydrant inventory. Believe it or not, the town has in excess of 1,300 fire hydrants, and we were lucky that we had a work term student last fall who took a little project under his wing, and he developed a little tag. So we're going to start a little program now where we're going to tag all of our fire hydrants, so we'll have them all numbers. And I do believe that is it from our committee meeting. So it's definitely a lot of work that's on the go. That's on the go in our Public Works Department. So the recommendation, be it so resolved that the recommendation decisions made at the Engineering Public Works Committee meeting of April 13, 2021 be accepted as approved, as presented. So moved.
Second.
Been moved. Do we have a second? Councillor Hillier, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded, motion is carried.
That's it for Public Works.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tilley. I'm going to ask Councillor Bent to bring forward the recommendations of the Financial and Administrative Services Committee, please.
Yes, thank you, Deputy. So now we'll pay for some of those things that Councillor Tilley mentioned from Public Works there a moment ago.
Absolutely.
This presentation and recommendations come from the meeting held on April 13th, 2021 of the committee. First up is accounts payable check register. Be it so resolved that approval be given to pay accounts payable checks totaling $150,025.01. So moved.
It's been moved. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Bursey seconds. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded, motion is carried.
Next recommendation, Deputy, is be it so resolved that approval be given to ratify the payment of manual checks that were previously released totaling $113,048.55. So moved.
It's been moved. Seconder, please. Councillor Hillier. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded, motion is carried. Thank you.
Next up, we're going to pay our capital invoices. Be it so resolved that approval be given to pay capital invoices totaling $584,440.54 as follows. And there's a list there, and I'm not sure if this is attached to the full agenda online, but there are a number of items: library, community park, air vents, Barishaw repair, lift station upgrades, maintenance, assurance manuals, and phase 47 asphalt investigation, totaling that $584,440.54. So moved.
It's been moved. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Hillier? No, yes, Councillor Hillier. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded, motion is carried.
Next up, Deputy Mayor, is tax collection, something that you touched on earlier, and it's very important to the town. And this is our efforts to retrieve the taxes that the town's own so we can carry out the business that we're here to do. So be it so resolved that approval be given to initiate the water disconnection process on accounts that have been identified. So moved.
It's been moved. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Tilley. Any discussion?
Just to note that these measures aren't taken lightly, Deputy. These are matters that have been ongoing for some time, and that staff have gotten to the situation where they have to send out notices of water disconnection in an effort to retrieve the taxes.
Yes, and as was indicated, there's quite a large sum of money of $4.4 million. So any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The next,
Contrary-minded, motion is carried. Go ahead.
Sorry, got anxious there, Deputy. The next one is be it so resolved that approval be given to initiate the third-party collection process on accounts that have been identified. So moved.
It's been moved. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Butler. Any discussion?
And again, Deputy, these are accounts that have been outstanding for quite some time, and efforts by the town to get these taxes have failed to date. So they've been passed on, or will be passed on now, to a third party for collection. It's unfortunate, but it's something that we have to do.
Okay, thank you. Any more discussion? All in favor, please.
Aye.
Contrary-minded? Motion is carried.
The next recommendation, Deputy, is be it so resolved that the order issued on February 5th, 2021 under the Municipalities Act 1999 and the Waste Disposal and Property Regulation, ordering the property owners to remove all dismantled, unused vehicles and debris situated at 121 Scotts Road South, Conception Bay South, be rescinded.
It's been moved. Do we have a second? Councillor Bursey, any discussion?
And in the cases like this where we rescind, compliance has been found in the meantime.
Very good. Thank you. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded? Motion is carried.
And just finally, deputies,
I think it's
Councillor
frozen.
Bent is frozen. Must be cold in Topsail. I don't know what we're going to do. I guess if you want me
Blanket
to.
one here,
2021.
Your
We
Worship.
accept.
You were frozen again, Councillor. You were frozen, Councillor Bent. Do you want to try that again, please?
The blanket recommendation, I believe we never heard.
I'm not sure if you can hear me, but you seem to be
Yeah,
frozen.
we can hear you. You were frozen on the last recommendation, Councillor Bent. Do you want to try it again?
Yeah, no, absolutely, Deputy. It's a blanket recommendation, so be it so resolved that the recommendations, decisions made at the Financial and Administrative Services Committee meeting on April 13th, 2021 be accepted as presented. So moved.
It's been moved. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Councillor Tilley. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary-minded, motion is carried.
Thank you.
I figured it had to be technical, Councillor Bent, because I've never heard you stuck for words yet. Okay,
I can't, I take that as a complete compliment, Deputy, of course.
absolutely, it is intended to be just that. Next, we have recommendations of the Economic Development and Tourism Committee, and the chair is Councillor Cheryl Davis.
Yes, Deputy, a presentation of recommendations of meetings, a meeting held on April 13th, 2021. First recommendation is on the Regional Wayfinding Signage Project. Be it so resolved that approval be given to enter into a contribution agreement with ACOA for the Regional Wayfinding Signage Project for funding of $38,325, which constitutes 50% of anticipated project costs. And further, be it so resolved that approval be given to release a request for proposals for the completion of the Regional Wayfinding Signage Project. So moved.
It's been moved. Do we have a seconder, please?
I second it.
Councillor Bursey. Any discussion?
Yes, Deputy. Wayfinding systems are a key contributor to positive experiences for residents and visitors to navigate through new places. We are proud to be the lead municipality on this project with 10 other municipalities in the region, making this a true regional project. Upon completion of this project, each participating community will receive a customized signage plan connecting recreation and tourism assets along with cost estimates for implementation. This project is a shining example of a regional collaboration in the tourist industry, as 10 fellow communities will work together on this project. Participating in this project is an action item within our tourism development strategy and another step closer to our goal of becoming the #1 day trip destination on the Northeast Avalon.
Thank you. Any more discussion, please? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded, motion is carried.
And just our blanket statement, be it so resolved that the recommendations and decisions made at the Economic Development and Tourism Committee meeting of April 13, 2021 be accepted as presented. So moved.
It's been moved. Do we have a seconder, Councillor Butler? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded, motion is carried. Is there any other committee reports? I don't think there is. So before we call for adjournment, just like to thank council and staff and our technical producer, Mr. Downey, in the background, and hope everybody has a safe week, and thank the public for joining in, and we'll sign off for the evening. So have a nice evening, everybody.
We call for the motion, Your Worship. to
Oh,
adjourn.
I'm sorry. Motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Councillor Hillier, seconded by Councillor Bent. All in favor?
Aye.
Good, sir.
Contrary-minded, motion is carried. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.